Loving greetings to you, and this is where people write in with real questions to our TMF marriage counselors. You could become a TMF marriage counselor. It's not that difficult. You just have to want to help people, and we have the right way to do that. So here we go. What if my husband/wife is crazy? This was written in by a man, I think, but it's the same for both sides. You know, there's a big difference between a man and a woman, and that difference really is reflective when we're looking at them sort of from the other gender's point of view. On the other hand, we're all essentially souls, hence the term soulmate. I know Paul said it himself, that all men think their wives are crazy. Yes, it was my experience back when I was doing live marriage counseling. Literally every single man said that. Every single man. It was hysterical. The women said it a little differently. But he capitalizes B and U and T. My wife does lie, acts belligerently a lot of times for even the littlest problems, and thinks I and my family, parents, sister, brother, are the problem for everything that goes wrong. And she will make up any story in her head to convince herself of the narrative. And I am so exhausted, always having to care for and tiptoe around her toxicity and her self-victimization. She has me doubting myself so often. And most of all, I am sick of her always screaming at me in front of our children and using them against me, parental alienation, but I still love her. I feel like nothing has worked. What should I do? This is fascinating, isn't it? The part that struck me is, but I still love her. So I'm going to take advantage of this to explain something that we are not really taught in life. In fact, the opposite of what I'm going to tell you is taught. What I'm telling you is that we are not our minds. And when I say the opposite is taught, I don't mean they come out and say, oh, you are your mind. But Freudian Western psychology, which is really the basis for 95%, 99% of the psychology that's used and has filtered down into the masses, defines the mind as you. And Freud breaks it down into you, the ego, you, the superego, you, the id, and so on. He leaves out something that is the opposite, which is that you are a soul. This is not religious. And he was anti-religion. He was also anti-God. So it's understandable. He was also a genius. But a genius can be a mad genius, or it could be a genius who does a lot of good. He was sincere. He was real, but he was wrong. We're not the mind. And the proof of that is not something that we find in test tubes. We find that in self-acknowledgement by doing what we promote at the Marriage Foundation, which is learning how to control the mind entirely. Well, how can the mind control itself? The I is not the ego, although it is to a large extent how people see us and how we see ourselves. The I is the soul. It is what God created. In fact, Descartes had this discussion not too long ago with a psychological major, psychologist. I said he had it wrong. He said, I think, therefore I am. You've probably heard that. The truth is, I am, therefore I can think. But it's not I thinking, it's my mind is doing the thinking. And we're not taught this. Why is this so important? Why am I going on and on about this? It's a huge distinction because I, the soul, I am all love. That's what the soul is. The soul is the existence of a part of God that is you. You. God created you in his image. From himself, he took from himself and created you, not fingers and toes and bones and flesh, but you are the soul. Why is this so important? Because you are who feels love. The mind, in fact, cannot feel love. The mind can experience some of the effects of love, joy, upliftment, a conscious state that is so far beyond the mind's capability that it's not even definable. When you experience love, and you have, the mind cannot handle it. In fact, if you do a quick recall now and think about when you have experienced love, what has happened? The mind wants to go into other areas, discuss things with you. It does. It has a discussion with you. We talk about, well, voices in my head and like that. Here's my conscience, here's this. Your conscience is the voice of God speaking to you. It is your soul. It's the real you. The love is so critically important because if you see your husband as blah, 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 if you see your wife as blah, 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 but you are focused not on those outer manifestations of her mind or his mind, rather you focus on your heart's love, all that crap dissolves. It falls away. You know, I used to do this when my kids were mad at each other. And a friend of mine taught me this. And I would have my kids hug each other. Within a couple of seconds, because kids are innocent, they're really connected to their hearts, within seconds they were giggling. Same thing happens if you're focused on the love and you're expressing only love mentally, using your mind, feeling, not emotionally, but feeling from your heart. You will see these things, this craziness, the lying, the exaggeration, all of those things will be like little specks of dust. When I met with people, and I met with a lot of them as I was developing these courses, because what we have at the Marriage Foundation are marital teachings, which are so far beyond anything else in the world. And so I had a big, giant whiteboard, 4x8 whiteboard, because I used to be a divorce mediator. That's another story. But before I started saving marriages, I ended them, and we would have to have discussions and decide who gets what and when do the kids meet with who and blah, blah, blah. So on the whiteboard, I would put 7 black dots. And I would ask my clients, this is marriage saving clients, I would say, what do you see? And nobody, in 8 years, nobody said, I see a whiteboard with 8 black dots. Everyone said, I see 8 black dots. So here you have this huge white and black dots. Our minds, again, our minds go for the negative. Why? It's a whole deep study that I did. And so it really boils down to a psychophysiological thing that happens because we have bodies, and the bodies all are driven by the drive to survive, self-preservation. So they're always on the lookout for the negative, aren't they? Okay, so I'm going to read this again because I got myself sidetracked. That happens from time to time, all the time. I know Paul said it himself that all men think their wives are crazy, but my wife does lie. Everybody lies. We lie to ourselves, we lie to cops, we lie to administrators, we lie to people, we lie. So, big deal. It's just a matter of degree. She's belligerent a lot of times, defensive. Why? You don't have to be a psychologist for this. She's belligerent. It's defensive. We all know that. Why? Because she's feeling, and it's not your fault. It's not the world's fault. It's that drive to survive. We feel always like we're about to get smushed. And in this world, we are if we're not careful. For even the littlest problems, yeah, most of us are like that. And thinks I and my family are the problem for everything that goes wrong. So she just happens to put the blame on that. And she'll make up any story in her head to convince herself of the narrative. Yeah, we all do that, don't we? Come on. Rationalization. And I'm so exhausted. Always having to care for her. He's not caring for her. That's the first place I would go. I would go, you're not supposed to care for her like a caregiver. You're supposed to give your heart, mind, and soul to her. Not to create something, but because you promised her you would love her with all your heart, mind, and soul. These things that you're writing are not expressions of love. These are expressions of self-preservation. You see, he just has a different way of formulating it in his own mind. Look, we're all psychological beings, but we don't deal with that at the Marriage Foundation. What we do, we ignore the psychological stuff. Who cares? What we do is we focus on learning to love unconditionally. That's what it's all about. Learn to love unconditionally. Then we have techniques and methods and processes so that we learn how to clean the mind and open the heart. That's what it's all about if you want a good marriage. Tiptoe around her toxicity. What a mean thing to say about your own wife. And her self-victimization. How dare you call her self-victimization? She has me doubting myself so often. Well, someone should. You should be doubting yourself. We all should be doubting ourselves. We should be looking at ourselves all the time, defining ourselves, recognizing those flaws within ourselves that we have to get rid of. You're not there for her to cure her. You're not God. And most of all, I'm sick of her always screaming at me in front of our children. It's humiliating, isn't it? It's okay. It's not that big a deal. Kids are kids. They know people scream at each other. That happens to be their environment right now. They'll get over it. You don't want her to scream at you, but why are you setting things up so that she has to? Why are you doing that? Look, I'm going to get a ton of comments saying, oh, this guy, he's all about women. Yeah, I am. And I'm also all about men. Yeah, I am. I'm also about if you have a problem, 100% of the time, 100%, not 99, it's your problem. It's how you perceive things. It's how your mind reacts to things, which is based on your habit of reactivity. And using them against me, oh, you poor boy, but I still love her. That's the part that's important. If you still love her, that's the part to cultivate. That's where it's at. So what if your wife or your husband is crazy? Look in the mirror, my friend. You're crazy too. I'm crazy too. In each other's eyes, nobody is perfect but ourselves. And we say all the time, oh no, I'm not perfect. BS. I'm calling you on that. You tell me right now, what is your greatest flaw? You see, it's not so easy. And that's the effect of self-preservation. What we do at the Marriage Foundation to help your marriage, because that's what we're about. We're not about people crying on our shoulders and us comforting them. I don't care if you're not comfortable. I care about you haven't found the essence of your marriage, which is love. And that's what we show you how to achieve. That will leave all this crap behind. You know, I saw this thing in Facebook recently. I don't know if it's true, where the only thing that will attack an eagle is a crow. They get on their back and they peck at their neck. I'm not saying this is true or not true, but they were setting up an illustration. So what the eagle does, it keeps flying higher and higher and higher, ignoring the pecks of the crow until it gets so high that the crow in the less dense air isn't able to breathe and falls off its back. That's how we should be with all of these petty things that are hitting us all the time. We should be concerned with how we see things, how we hear things, and we should always force ourselves to come from the place of love, real love, not emotional love, not that mind's love, but the deepest love that we are. That's what it's all about. That's what marriage is all about. I'm Paul Friedman. I founded the Marriage Foundation. We, all of us here at the Marriage Foundation, are here to support you and serve you. Go to our website, see what we're about. God bless you, and take care. And don't forget to like this video. And don't forget to subscribe. Take care.